All right, today we are going to try to create a still life with gourds. So you are going to be close to a set of gourds today, and your goal is to try to really look at those gourds and draw them as best as you can. So I am going to start with that one on the left. It's more of a rounded shape. And I'm going to start with that bottom, and it's not straight. I'm trying to press dark enough so that you can hopefully see this on the video. Remember, when you're drawing with pencil, you really want to try to draw lightly because we might make mistakes. That's going to happen. I'm trying to draw that curve. If I'm drawing lightly, I can erase easier. This gourd has some really bumpy lines. Awesome texture. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to look at that gourd as much as possible and draw exactly how I'm seeing those lines curve. It might not look perfect on the end, but I'm trying my best. I've never drawn a gourd like this before. The stem has a really cool shape that reaches down and touches those bumped ridges that are coming out. And then the stem kind of comes up, and the top has a very three-dimensional look to it. I can see things happening behind it. It's very 3D. So these curved lines are coming around towards the stem. I'm seeing the same thing happen on the other side, but over here, that other gourd is touching it. So I'm going to create that circle. So pressing hard, you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm going to erase this part right here because I kind of have it in the wrong spot. This is actually down here that I see that happening. So we are going to really look at some of those negative shapes. The spaces between the gourds. I see this almost triangle shape happening. So this gourd comes up, and then underneath its neck, there's a little space between the two gourds before it comes down to the table. Almost looks like a triangle shape. So over here, this round piece kind of curves around. It's got a long neck and comes this way. And that bottom, I'm liking how that's looking, that it's overlapping. And the back side of this gourd is very round, and its stem is just a little bit off the table edge. This gourd also has some really great lines and a stem that is broken off. So some of these lines are kind of curving around and stopping. So I'm looking at that gourd and seeing what's really happening. Some of the lines start to come around the neck and then they stop because I can't see them anymore. There's one that curves with the neck, and I see goes all the way down to the bottom. And it gets thick in some spots. See, a couple of them just starting at the neck. They're not really touching the stem that I can see. So everybody's angle of the still life is going to look a little bit different. Okay, I kind of have a very rough sketch. I might go back in and look at some of those lines and see which ones are thick. This one has some really green parts with some very funny looking shapes. Okay. Right now I have the still life drawn, but it really looks like it's just floating. So you should be able to see some kind of a table line. For me, my table line is back here. So the entire gourd is on the table. You might see your line, your horizon line, coming down a little bit further and even in between the gourds, depending on where you're sitting. Once you have the gourds drawn, you're going to want to stay close to those spots, and we're going to try to add some color to our still life with oil crayons. So I've picked out some oil crayon colors that I see in the gourds. I like to start with white all over the gourd. Now, I know that's silly because your paper's white, but the white allows me to really smear and blend colors. So this gourd has a very light yellow. So if I have white on my gourd and I add a little bit of yellow, it already looks very pale colored looking. You could smear that with your finger if you wanted. You could, if that happens, that's okay. Don't do it on purpose. You could add another layer of white. If your oil crayons are really dirty, you can flip your paper over and rub some of that dirt off on the back. So this gourd has some dark green shapes that I talked about. So I'm going to color those that darker green. I still don't like that green because it's not matching it perfectly. Maybe a little brown to make it darker. I could smear those in. That's looking a little bit better. Maybe around that green I'm seeing a little bit of a brighter yellow. The stems are not this dark brown. I might add some white to the stem. I might add a little bit of brown to get that tannish color really lightly. So some of the areas I'm pushing really dark with the oil crayon, some of them I'm pushing really lightly, trying to get all those textures I'm seeing. So today, I really want you to focus on looking at those gourds. They might not be perfect, but I know that this is something new we've never done before. Once you're drawn in pencil, you want to add some color with the oil crayons, matching as best as possible.